Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Well, first, good evening and welcome to Update, your rundown of what's been happening on the Isle of Man today. So coming up in the next half hour, we're going to hear the response from the Council of Ministers to the report into how government handled the COVID pandemic. We'll also hear about changes to the departure lounge at the airport, which are being promised, and quite a lively exchange about the appointment of one of the Steam Packet's non-executive directors. All that plus we'll keep you up to date with anything which might delay your journey home tonight. And as ever, if you see something that you think we should know about, you can text 166 177 or email the studio. It's studio@manxradio.com. First, though, let's join Chanel for the Man Benham News headlines.
First to Mai. The Council of Ministers have pledged that a report into the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has not been left on a shelf, and nor will it be. They say areas they will address include emergency planning, emergency powers and ways of working. A Douglas South MHK thinks the Isle of Man must admit it cannot afford to fund every strategy set out in the island plan. Claire Christian is calling on Tynwald to debate pre-existing funding commitments and fiscal gaps within government's top priorities for the next decade. And the Early Pregnancy Assessment Unit is now available at Nobles Hospital. It's a space designated for those experiencing complications in early pregnancy. In international news, a man from London will go on trial next spring, accused of killing two men and dumping their bodies in Bristol. The 34-year-old is accused of murdering Albert Alfonso and Paul Longworth. Some economists fear today's UK's inflation figures shut down any prospect of an interest rate cut next month. The Office for National Statistics says the rate at which prices are rising remained the same in June at 2%, defying predictions that it would be slightly lower. And National Gas, who run the gas network across the UK, say people spent an extra £6 million on heating homes during a colder than average June. Figures show there was a 20% increase in usage compared to a year ago. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. I can well believe that money that's been spent on heating in June. Today, though, dry, plenty of sunshine, light south or southwest winds and top temperatures of 18 Celsius. Now that wind will become moderate to fresh this evening. It will turn cloudy overnight. There might be a few spots of rain possibly developing by dawn, and minimum overnight temperatures will be 12 Celsius. Tomorrow it is going to be cloudy with a few outbreaks of patchy light rain and moderate to fresh southerly winds, temperatures 17 Celsius. And again, a cloudy start to Friday, but that cloud will start to thin in the afternoon and there will be some sunny intervals developing with a moderate southerly wind and again top temperatures of around 17. So not too bad. Not brilliant though, is it? Sunset this evening 9:40, sunrise tomorrow morning 5:10.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
Many people are struggling. You could help them with a donation to Isle of Man Food Bank, whether food or other essential items or financial support. Please call 646 999. Brought to you by Descon Office Interiors.
Relax at Wicked Soy Candles overlooking Douglas Bay. Our candle and wax melt courses includes refreshments from £40 per person, and you can bring your own drinkies. Wicked Soy Candles, Tower House Douglas, where relaxation and creativity come together.
For a wide range of wood-burning stoves and a complete installation service, visit The Snug in Ramsey. And we don't stop there. Kiln-dried firewood and full aftercare service, including chimney sweeps and maintenance. Call The Snug in Ramsey.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio FM. It's coming up to 5:05. We're going to start with the latest on a story we've been following all week. And a prisoner who took his own life at the Isle of Man prison was suffering from severe mental health problems, but was hopeful for the future at around the time of his death. Well, that's what the jury has been told at the inquest of Christopher Peter Corkle today. He was found dead in his cell on the morning of the 24th of February 2023. Sian Cowper has the latest from Douglas Courthouse, and just a reminder that this story will contain information which some listeners may find upsetting.
Today, on the third day of the inquest, Dr. Kirsten Wafer, the retired consultant psychiatrist for the drug and alcohol team, said she had been shocked to learn of Mr. Corkill's death. The jury was told he'd been working with the service for more than 20 years, both inside and outside of prison, due to his opioid addiction. Dr. Wafer explained that there'd been an escalation in his mental health issues, which included a diagnosis of schizophrenia and paranoia, as well as hallucinations. This was particularly evident, she said, after he'd taken Class A drugs, adding when he stopped taking cocaine and restarted taking his medication, things settled back down very quickly. In June 2022, the month before Mr. Corkill was sent to custody for the final time, he'd reported hearing voices in his head and self-harming. He was very psychotic before he went to prison, Dr. Wafer told the court, adding that once inside, his symptoms did settle down. Dr. Wafer last saw Mr. Corkill in December 2022 and described him as being well physically and mentally at the time. He didn't want to see me because he was saying, "I'm fine," she added. She told the court they'd discussed referring Mr. Corkill to the mental health service, but explained he didn't seem keen. I was hoping to be able to persuade him. He never lost his capacity. It was entirely up to him to make decisions about his treatment. When asked if Mr. Corkill had suffered from a severe mental health problem, Dr. Wafer replied, yes, absolutely. The court also heard that he saw a key worker from the drug and alcohol team in February 2023 and had been optimistic. He was actually reflecting on the mess his life had been. He was hopeful for the future, Dr. Wafer added. The inquest continues.
Sian Cowper reporting. Kate Brunner KC's report into government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has not been left on a shelf, and nor will it be. Well, that is the pledge from the Council of Ministers as it further sets out its response to the review in this month's Tynwald sitting. But the document received criticism alongside praise when presented to gathered members.
Every November we gather around our island's war memorials to remember those who passed away in conflict. We do so not to glorify the cause of war, but remember human sacrifice and to commit ourselves anew to doing our best to ensure that our society is not placed in a similar situation again. We remember in order to learn the lessons that drove us to that point and to search always for the humanity in others and for the peace and reconciliation in the aftermath to rebuild our society and work for a better future. It's not my intention to stir a hornet's nest, but seek acknowledgement there were so many who were trying to do the right thing, both in government and in the private sector, that not everyone got that right, and for many the impact lingers.
The one thing I think is missing from this is there doesn't seem to be some remorse, some empathy for an apology in certain circumstances, particularly in relation to those going to the comas and being, as they would term it, incarcerated up there.
I wish it had been a little bit more robust, the response from the Council of Ministers. I don't think it's timely. People want answers. People want to know the government is focusing on good governance and protecting the public purse for the people of the Isle of Man.
Having seen years of emergency planning being downgraded and defunded, I really welcome the work that's been carried out by the Department of Home Affairs to reinstate a very considered approach to emergency planning. And I particularly welcome the words of the DEFRA Minister today with this enhanced focus on biosecurity.
But it would not be appropriate to stand here and not mention just how devastating it was for small businesses through the pandemic. It was as if the horsemen of the apocalypse ran right through them. It was absolutely devastating, and nobody was paid. So we can talk here about the Dunkirk spirit and virtual parliaments, but out there it was a different reality.
It is on all of us to ensure this work is prioritised in our departments and our statutory boards, not just officers, not just ministers, all of us. Let us not fight over the speed of this. Let us work together to deliver the necessary changes and safeguard our island's future.
That was some of the contributions in this month's sitting of Tynwald to the COVID report. In the end, the Council of Ministers' response was voted through unanimously during the sitting. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio FM. It's coming up to 5:10. Just a warning that this story is going to refer to miscarriage and baby loss, but overall it is really positive news because a designated space for those experiencing complications in early pregnancy has officially opened at Nobles Hospital. The Early Pregnancy Assessment Unit is now available, as Amy Griffiths reports.
Miscarriage is often something that's not talked about. In fact, most people wait until after their first 12-week scan to announce that they're pregnant in case it's not successful. However, according to the NHS, 1 in 10 pregnancies will end in miscarriage in women under 30, which increases to 1 in 5 in women over 35. Until now, those who are experiencing pregnancy complications on the island are often placed with other pregnant women while they wait for treatment, which can be even more distressing for those in that position. However, the Early Pregnancy Assessment Unit's now officially welcoming its first visitors. It has a separate entrance and exit, and also has a room that's been designed specifically for parents experiencing miscarriage and baby loss. The Bluebell Suite's being designed by Vicky Christian, who herself has suffered multiple miscarriages and a complicated pregnancy. It had been hoped the facility would be ready by January of this year, but it was delayed. At the opening of the unit, Manx Care's CEO Theresa Cope said it was lovely to see this come to fruition, branding it the first step in a positive change for the island.
Amy Griffiths reporting there, and she mentioned Vicky Christian, who designed the room, and you'll be able to hear from Vicky on breakfast tomorrow morning. Let's turn our attention to business now, and we've been in touch with Isle of Man Post today to ask if they've officially taken on the contract to deliver Amazon parcels. They told us they are proud to provide final mile deliveries for a number of UK retail and logistic businesses, but are not able to comment specifically on any commercial arrangements. However, we did get a bit more detail about this during questions in Tynwald this afternoon, when it was suggested to Post Office Chair Stu Peters that delivery times of UK and Manx mail had been more erratic since the Amazon contract had been taken on. Here's what he had to say.
It's fair to say that the Isle of Man Post Office is moving to being a parcels delivery firm. I don't believe for a second that ordinary mail is disadvantaged by the Amazon contract. So, no, I don't think that's true. I've also, as chairman, had a few emails from people concerned that local mail has been delayed, and I've taken those concerns to the post office. I would advise anybody with concerns like this to send an email to customer.services@iompost.com. But if a local letter doesn't get delivered, that's more of a concern to me than something that comes from across. I think it's fair to say that it doesn't take an awful lot to rock the boat, and if a postie phones in sick one day, it can cause problems. It's usually able to repurpose people, to redesignate people, to make sure that things are only delayed by maybe a day. But I think that there was a bit of a spike after the COVID spike that we had after TT, where I think we had a higher than normal rate of sick absence. That might have something to do with it, I don't know.
That is Chair of Isle of Man Post, Stu Peters, speaking in Tynwald this afternoon. Now, the stock market report brought to you by Ramsey Crookall, and global chip stocks fell sharply, with several posting declines amid reports of tighter export restrictions from the US and a ramp-up of geopolitical tensions fueled by comments from former US President Donald Trump. Oil prices did rise today, though, a day after benchmark Brent hit a one-month low. Oil stands at $84.55 currently, and gold prices hit a record high today as comments from Federal Reserve officials boosted expectations of a September interest rate cut in the US. Gold stands at $2,463. In corporate news, Severn Trent and United Utilities were among the gainers. They fell yesterday after Ofwat said it was expanding its investigation into how water companies manage their wastewater treatment works and networks to include those too. Well, at the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.31% at 8,189. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones was up 0.32% at 41,084. And the Nasdaq was off 2.29% at 18,085.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
3:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
All looking okay at the Steam Packet and Airport this evening, but there are quite a few things happening around the island at the moment. The resurfacing in Onken all this week means the main road through the village is one way for traffic heading in a northbound direction and to southbound traffic heading towards Douglas between the post office and Corkles roundabout. There's also that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout the works. In Castletown until Friday, there are temporary lights on Victoria Road at the roundabout with the harbour. That's 24 hours a day for gas repairs. In Ramsey, again until Friday, Station Road is closed for drainage work. And a couple of things to look out for in Laxey until tomorrow. Temporary lights 24 hours a day on Pinfold Hill, and slightly longer term until the end of November, temporary lights on Ramsey Road at the Minorca Hill Junction, both 24 hours a day.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside. It is 5:15 now. Airport bosses say the departure lounge at Ronaldsway Airport will soon get an upgrade, subject to agreements being signed. Siobhan Fletcher has the details.
The update comes after people took to social media recently to comment on conditions at the facility. Posters highlighted the dirty, stained and ripped chairs in the departure lounge, describing them as embarrassing. In a statement, Airport Director Gary Cobb told Manx Radio that the airport has been aware for some time that certain areas are not in optimal condition. He went on to say that funding has been a significant issue, as any available money has been required to maintain safety-critical areas of the airport to ensure it remains open and operational. Consequently, other areas such as customer experience have suffered. However, he added the airport has now secured a solution for the departure lounge and they hope to announce it soon.
That is Siobhan Fletcher reporting there. We saw those photographs of the airport chairs which were posted on social media, and that was the airport's response to that. Now, Dr Michelle Haywood, who's the political member for Treasury, tasked with seeking Tynwald approval for 2 new non-executive directors for the Steam Packet Company, says she's thoroughly ashamed of comments made by some of her colleagues. Now, this is after concerns were raised by some members over the appointment of former Middle MHK Bill Shimmons, who was a member of Treasury when the ferry operator was bought. His appointment, along with marketing expert Amanda Binden, were approved by Tynwald, but some felt Mr Shimmons' political past was an issue. Here's what they had to say.
Obviously, one of these people is overtly political, having been a passionate campaigning MHK. So, to what extent was the role of a campaigning politician mentioned in the recruitment process?
If honourable members consider that the eligibility criteria for such roles should be changed, then that is a separate matter around the system. And I think it is entirely inappropriate, and I fully disassociate myself with the remarks made by the former Speaker, the Honourable Member for Douglas Central, in some of the things that he has commented on about one of the proposed appointees.
Gosh, for the Deputy Chief Minister to intervene in such a way is very significant. I've got 2 concerns in terms of one of the candidates, and that really is down to their former role, but also their very proactive role. And in terms of the process, was that a material consideration that they had a significant role within this area prior?
I completely refute some of the suggestions that have been made here today. I think it's really, really unfortunate that this House has descended into making personal comments about somebody who is not here to defend themselves and cannot defend themselves in this court. Making allegations that Tynwald somehow is being asked to approve a candidate that Treasury is going to control, I think is well beyond the bounds. And I'd just like to record that the members who've made such comments are not currently in this court listening to the debate. So having felt it was so important to stand up and make those allegations and to throw those aspersions out there against people's characters and motives, I think to leave the court shows volumes about how much they care about the answers or listening to any reasoned debate on it, and I am thoroughly ashamed that I've had to sit here and bring this today and to witness that.
Some of the allegations and the perceptions you gave, really, you should have the honourable nature to withdraw those particular items.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Thomas,
I withdraw any remarks that were disparaging.
OK, we heard there from MHK's Chris Thomas, Jane Paul Wilson and Jason Morehouse, also the MLC Bill Henderson and the mover of the appointments, Michelle Haywood, MHK. We have invited the Steam Packet to comment if they wish, but we understand that they will not be responding. 5:20, a unit of 24 single occupancy cabins installed at the Isle of Man prison will house the first prisoners in the next 2 weeks. Now, they've been installed because of the overcrowding at the prison following recent police drugs operations and the introduction of new legislation on the island. The government's released a video publicising their use, saying they are expected to be in place for an initial period of 12 months with the option to extend if required. Here's Prison Governor Leroy Bonnick and Deputy Governor Martin Phillips.
Isle of Man Prison has a capacity of 141 single occupancy cells. We usually operate at around between 70 to 90 prisoners, but in recent times that population has increased by about 66%, which has resulted in us introducing a further 24 single cells accommodation within the prison grounds.
So all prisoners that we expect to populate the Juliet unit here will be assessed. Most of them will be towards the end of the sentence or currently working out in the community. And the expectation is they'll be low risk. With them working in the community, they'll be spending most of their working day out and will return just around about tea time to spend the evenings in this unit here. They'll still be subject to the security of the main prison, and they'll be expected to follow the rules. They'll also be subject to the current searches as they would do on the normal wings, and the expectation of keeping the units clean and tidy is there still. This is really a step towards their independence and getting them ready for going back into the community as part of their rehabilitation and reintegration back into normal life.
That's the Deputy Governor of the Isle of Man Prison, Martin Phillips, and before that, the Prison Governor, Leroy Bonnick. 5:21. Well, this year's edition of Manx Lit Fest is fast approaching, and it really is shaping up to be a jam-packed week. The 6-day festival will take place between Tuesday the 24th and Sunday the 29th of September at a variety of venues around the island. Committee member Reiki Bennett says the organisers do really try and cater for everyone.
One of our commitments is to promoting, a diversity of genres and all of that. And obviously, we've got such a mixed audience on the island. We've got people who love all kinds of different stuff. So we always try and bring over a mix. But because we are quite a small festival in the grand scheme of things, we are only able to bring over a certain number of authors each year. So yes, it is difficult. We always try to bring over a poet, and other genre writers. We also non-fiction ones. We always try and bring over some non-fiction folks. And one of the other things we do is we try and bring over a literary agent from one of the literary agencies in the UK. This year we've got Lydia Silver from the Darley Anderson Children's Agency. She's going to be coming over and she'll be at Writers' Day. And one of the things we offer, which is a pretty unique thing, is that local authors or aspiring writers can pitch to this agent and pitch their project or their manuscript and get feedback from a literary agent as to how their project is going. Marvelous. And this is just something that you can't really get on the island because obviously literary agents are mostly based in the UK. So it's very difficult for aspiring writers and poets and illustrators and everyone over here to be able to get that sort of face-to-face meeting. So we're very happy to be able to provide something like that.
Brilliant. Committee member Reiki Bennett about the Manx Lit Fest. You can hear more about that in Spotlight just after update at 5:30. And plans have been revealed for a £1.4 million refurbishment of Douglas Council's sunken gardens. The local authority is looking to refurbish Marine Gardens 4, 5 and 6, and it'll consist of a children's play area, a skate park and an open space with seating. Local democracy reporter Emma Draper has been talking to Councillor Devon Watson.
The Douglas Council does budget for parks and play facilities. This is paid for out of rates, and this is not financed all in one big bang. This is financed over a period of years, so this cost will be smoothed. Additionally, it's also worth investing in our community, and it's also worth investing in these facilities that children and young families are going to be using.
And do your councillors agree that it's worth spending £1.4 million on this scheme?
Yeah, 100%. I know that there's been a lot of controversy over the past few years. So one thing I do want to make clear is that the council does not handle direct infrastructure with regards to the paving or a lot of the parking around there or the horse trams or anything. But what we do invest in are facilities, and particularly facilities that families use. Raising a family can be particularly expensive. So having facilities such as playgrounds that young people, teenagers, and families with kids can use free of charge, that are high quality and are within town, near the community, are absolutely essential. It's 100% worth it to invest in these facilities, not only for Douglas, but for the island as a whole.
Within the plans, what mitigations are the council putting in the designs, like seawater repellent materials, putting any extra walls to prevent damage? Because as we know, the seawall that the DOI are putting in is only from the War Memorial to the Empress Hotel, which doesn't cover either of the sections of the sunken gardens that you guys are planning to refurbish.
So at the same time, we are also investing in sea defences. At the same time, we are working with companies that specialise in creating play equipment in coastal communities. So these have been thought of and these plans have been incorporated into this. The problem can be an area that does flood. And as such, these designs need to incorporate that and be future-proof and be adapted to ensure that they do work.
That's Councillor Devon Watson talking to Emma Draper. Sports time now, and here's Mr. Sport, Rob Pritchard.
Yes, first am I. Good evening, Beth. So we'll start with athletics, and Isle of Man athlete David Malarkey has completed a move to the Northern Arizona University track and field squad in the USA. The Manxman joins from Florida State University, with whom he's been racing since early 2023. NAU is describing Malarkey, who achieved prestigious All-American status in November last year, as a big-time addition to their setup. It's been a busy day as well in cycling again today, starting with the Tour de France, and Mark Cavendish, who finished the mountainous 17th stage today, just over 27 minutes behind the stage winner. The Manx missile is not expected to get another opportunity to extend his Tour stage win record of 35 after failing to win the event's final sprint finish yesterday. Elsewhere, Matthew Bostock will be looking to maintain his good form in the British National Circuit Series in the fifth and latest round at the Sheffield Grand Prix tonight. The Island rider has won 2 of the 4 events on the series so far, including the previous round of the Dudley Grand Prix last Friday. And one of the Isle of Man's up-and-coming prospects, Zachary Walker, has been in action at the Valle d'Aosta under-23 event in Italy this afternoon. Walker, who rides for Italian squad Ream, finished 41st on the opening stage of the event. And finally, in football, the Isle of Man FA is looking for someone to spearhead the recruitment and retention of match officials for the future. The organisation has begun its search for a new referee development officer following the departure of Paul Hodgkinson from the role. Whoever takes up the post would also be responsible for promoting refereeing and help to recognise and reward officials. The deadline for applications for the job is Thursday, the 25th of July.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. And that is all from Update this evening. As always, if there's something happening, good or bad, that you think we need to know about in your community, well, the news team would love to hear from you. newsroom@manxradio.com is the email address. Coming up next this evening, as I mentioned, it's Spotlight with Howard Kane, then Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley from 6 p.m, followed by a new programme, an hour of the best contemporary country music with Andy Wint, complete with Stetson and Chaps. Leave you with that image, and I will be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Whatever you're doing tonight, have a great one, and we'll talk to you again at the same time. Update at 5 p.m. tomorrow, but breakfast first with Ben and Sean from 6 a.m.